Today I've got something really fabulous and I think you're going to love it, but wait till you see the pattern. Let's have a look at it. This is the quilt. As you can see, it's got these amazing cupcakes on one side with the lovely pink border, and then on the other side is pink polka dots with cherries. I'm Sarah, welcome to my sewing room. I'm a fabric lover and upcycling addict. I sew clothes from scratch and also upcycle old things in your wardrobe to turn them into new exciting garments. If you love creative makes and clothes with personality, stick around and let's make something fabulous. I found this quilt on Vinted and it's a child's quilt from around about 2010. So I want to make a reversible jacket, and that's sort of what I've been playing around with these pattern pieces. I'm trying to lay the pattern pieces out so that I can actually fit this jacket on here without too much adjustment. I think I'm going to have to make the jacket very slightly shorter, and I'm going to have to remove the top panel on here, this pink stripe along here, because I don't want to do the sleeve up that way, because obviously then the cupcake's going to be upside down on the sleeve. So I need to do the sleeve up that way, and as you can see, I need literally to go right to the edge of the fabric. So what I'm going to do is remove that pink top line and then put that onto the bottom of the sleeve so I can lengthen the sleeve that way. And then I might need to do the actual body of the jacket slightly shorter, maybe not too much, maybe a couple of centimetres. And I might need to make it so that the shoulders aren't quite so off the shoulder as well, because at the moment the shoulders stick out and they sort of overlap. So I think if I take a couple of centimetres off just each shoulder, which won't be much and it won't lengthen the sleeve, shorten the sleeves by too much, I reckon I can get the whole pattern out of this and keep the cupcakes up the right way the whole way along. Pocket, I'm not sure if I'm going to have a pocket yet. I'm going to try and get a cupcake on each of the pockets, or I may opt for the cherry side. I don't know which side I'm going to have the pockets. Obviously, I don't want pockets on both sides because that's going to make the pocket area really bulky because it's a quilt. But let's see how I get on. So first of all, I need to cut out this fabulous fabric. And I think the first cut is just going to be so hard to do because, as you can see, it is just so amazing. So I folded the quilt in half and put the back on the fold and then the front on the lovely pink border. And as you can see, there's hardly any gap in between, and I don't really want to make a seam out of that if I can help it. So I think I'm just going to cut down through, as I said, where the sleeve goes in, then cut the sleeve. I'll look at the cupcake side though, just to make sure that the cupcakes are in the middle. And then I think that's going to make it really easy for me. It's all in the planning with something like this, because obviously there's a direction to the quilt, so I need to make sure I keep the direction on the fabric and keep everything up the right way, but I also need to utilize the border as best I can, and really emphasize that yes, this is an upcycle quilt and it's going to look really cool. Looking at the pattern there, and that's the front and the back section, and that pretty much goes to the middle of the quilt, the front and the back, and then obviously that will be mirrored onto the other side of the quilt. But what I could do is actually just make it really boxy and not actually have a side seam so that it's continuous all the way around. That overcomes obviously the reversibility of it as well, because there's going to be no seams. And then I can just sew the sleeve in to, if I cut down through that area there, and then sew the sleeve in, and then I just need to do binding on one side on the sleeves where I set the sleeve in, so around the armhole and across the shoulder, and around the neck obviously. But that's all the binding I'd need to do, because obviously I've got the lovely border on the front there like that. I've got the border going along the back at the base, and there's going to be no side seams. So I think that would actually work out really well and utilize the fabric so that there's no joints, because then I don't have half a cupcake and then sort of a third of another cupcake or something. It's just going to be a continual flow all the way around the jacket. So I think that's the plan. Let's see how I get on. So I've moved to my cutting table and I pinned the back and front panels onto the quilt, and I'm just about to make the first cut, so this is the really scary bit. So that's the back and the front. I just need to cut down here for the sleeve. This is making me feel a little bit sick, to be honest. So let's fold this back in the other way now. What I might do first is actually just take that border off. I was going to get a quick unpick, but I can't actually find one. That shows how often I use a quick unpick, doesn't it? I'm just going to have to use the big scissors. So that's going to come off, and it's actually left a really good pattern above where that was, which is going to be the top of the sleeve. So it's actually worked out really well. I'll just unpick the rest and then we'll come back and cut the sleeve. So I've removed the top pink border from along there. What I need to do now is cut out the sleeve as best I can. I would have liked to have got that one in the middle. So let me just... that fold is in the middle, so that is in the middle. So that pretty much fits there. Could do that cupcake there. Oh, they're both the same. So I could do those two cupcakes as the pockets. So it's worked out well. So let me just pin the sleeve on and cut the sleeve out. Just going to have to... that side's very slightly shorter. I'm going to have to lose a tiny bit of length on the sleeve, but I can make that longer with the pink binding anyway, if I need to. That's the centre of the cupcake there. That means that cupcake's going to have binding on the bottom. I don't suppose it matters. So I'm going to pin this on and then cut this out. It's quite hard to get the placement right, and I think it's better to get it right on the cupcake side because they're quite dramatic and big, rather than the cherry side, and the polka dot side is a bit more random and all over the place. So that's the sleeve. I'm going to make the sleeve slightly wider as well because I think it's going to be a bit narrow on me. So I'm going to just take it to there so that it isn't tight. There's nothing worse than sleeves that are too tight. Again, just take it a centimetre bigger than that sleeve so that it's a little bit more roomy. I was actually right to cut along that line. I wasn't sure if it was going to be too short. So that's the sleeve cut out. So that's one sleeve, and that's the other sleeve. So they're both pretty much the same. Then obviously on the other side it's the cherries. I'm loving it already. Let's go and find some bias binding. I think the bright pink's going to be just a bit too bright. So I've got two matches for bias binding. Either have the bright pink or the very pale pink. The very pale pink looks really lovely, but I don't actually have enough of it. I've pinned the shoulder seams together, and the jacket is going to be really, really wide. It's going to be really hilarious. But I pinned them together anyway. So I'm going to sew the shoulder seams, and then I'm going to basically flat bind just some binding over the seam, just so that it doesn't, I don't want it sticking up, I want it flat. So it's going to be, the stitching is going to be seen from the other side, but obviously it's just going to be a flat line of binding across the shoulder, and I'll do the same on the armhole seam as well. So let's get the shoulders sewn together first of all. I don't want that length stitch, I want longer. Probably should use the walking foot. I'm using tiny seam allowances just about a centimetre, because what I'm going to do is just fold the seam out flat and bind over it. That's one side done. Just need to sew the other shoulder seam. Actually, before I do the sleeves, I just need to run some binding just over the edge of there. So I might use this pink for that as well. So I use that for the shoulder seam and the armhole seam. So I've sewn the shoulder seams, and I just want to try it on because I just can't wait just to see how crazy it looks. So then it's going to have fastenings obviously down through the front there, and then sleeves, and it's just so cool. I'm going to have to put pockets on, I think, though. I really, really love it. It's so big though. It is big. I might have to take it in. I was hoping I wasn't going to have to, because I didn't want to have seams down the side as well. But I don't know if I'm going to have a choice, because it is really big. What do you think? Take in? I think it's just that I don't like how that sits out like that. I prefer it a bit more snug to my body. Can't decide. I've come up with a plan to make this slightly smaller. I'm not going to cut it. I'm just going to sew this smaller on the side, and then I'm actually just going to fold the seam over and sew it down. So it's almost like a flat fell seam. It's going to be a little bit bulky because obviously it's got wadding in it. But I think that's a better solution than putting binding down through the side and cutting the fabric. So let's see how that works. So I've just taken in one side, and I'm just going to now sew this down like a flat fell seam almost on the outside, which is obviously the pink side. So let's just put that under. I'm using a hump jumper, and I've changed to my AccuFeed walking foot as well, because I just think this is quite lumpy, and I think I might need a bit of extra help on this. Okay, that's good. That's the first bit. Let's have a look at that. Oh yeah, I actually really like that. So that's going to be on one side, and then the other side is just like that. So that's really good, and that's actually going to make it slightly smaller, which has worked out well. So I'm just doing a second little fit check and taking in the sides now. This is actually pretty much the size of the original pattern now. So if you want to make this pattern, this is what my size would look like. And you can see I've just got nothing on that side, and then the other side has a lovely little flat fell seam. It is a little bit bulky, but it actually makes it feel quite robust and cute now. And it hasn't ruined the cupcake line too much. So I'm quite pleased with that. So let's get to setting the sleeves in. So I put that sleeve in, put the cuff on the bottom there, which was the edge of the quilt. So that's on all nice and neatly. I bound the bottom underarm. I'll just cut these threads off. And I've also bound around the armhole, which was really, really tricky. So not maybe the neatest I could have done. Now I've got experience of it, I'm obviously going to have a go at the other side now. So basically turn the sleeve inside out, and then I need to sew the tape around that existing seam and then fold it over to cover up the seam. Right, I need to sew it from the inside because I need to fold it onto the main body. So it needs to be sewn on the inside of the arm, and then that gets folded to the body. So a little bit wider than that. So I just pin it round first of all and sew round through all the layers, and then I just need to sew the tape down through one layer, which is actually the tricky bit. and takes a little bit of manoeuvring in the sewing machine. So sew this round, then I'll trim off the excess on this side, make it nice and tidy to be able to sew the seam binding over the seam. So I've done the binding around the sleeves, and my advice would be use bias binding and not something straight like I did, because it's really hard and the finish isn't as good as I'd have liked. It's not too bad along straight seams, but when you've got a curve like that, it's a bit more difficult. You can see that straight seam is pretty tidy as well. I put bias binding around the neck. That was literally all the bias binding I had in a light pink, but that actually looks quite cute with the binding around the neck. So all I need to do now is the pockets. I've been rethinking the pockets actually. I'm thinking now I might go with cherries on the cherry side. So I have these two bits here that I could make cherry pockets with, like that. So I have cherry pockets. I might even put white binding around the edge if I can find some white binding, which will just make the edge of the pocket pop with the white then. So either that, or I'm going to have to use the very dark pink, which is just too dark. You can see it's really bright compared with that one, almost like a neon. And I don't have any of the other light colour seam binding left. So we either go for a cupcake on the cupcake side, or maybe I could go with a cupcake on the cherry side. Actually, I could, because there's a cherry on the top of that cup. So I've just cut the middle out of my pocket piece so that I can get an idea of where the cherry cupcake will be. Because obviously it's right at the bottom there, but I could just cut across the bottom. That's not a big deal. And I don't really want to lose the cherry leaf at the top. So I either have to lose the top or the bottom of the cherry if I keep it to exactly this pattern piece, which I think I probably will. But if you cut the middle of your pattern piece out, literally I just folded it in half, cut 2 triangles there to give that, and then folded it in half that way to cut 2 triangles out there as well. And it just gives you a better idea of what is actually on your pocket. I think I might go for that. I think that's going to be super cute, but I need to find some binding to go around there. Maybe see if I've got any other colour, like maybe a yellowy colour or a bluey colour for the cupcake. Let's see what other colours I've got of binding. Right, so I've cut the pockets out, and they're both the same. I'm thinking, I've overlocked all the way around the edge. I'm thinking of just turning that over and doing a hem on the top, and then actually just turning it over where it's overlocked, and actually then just sewing it around the edge, so not having binding, because I don't need binding for it to stand out, because obviously it's white on the pink background. So I think that'll probably be better, especially as I don't have any binding to match. So it's a sort of a bit of a workaround, but I think it will actually work better. So let's get these pockets on, and then it's pretty much finished. So the jacket is actually finished now. All the sleeves, all the pockets on the outside, and then obviously on the inside. You can't see them. It's all bound around the neck. I just need to put some fastenings on it now. And I'm thinking just poppers, because if I put poppers on, it's going to be the same on the inside and the outside in terms of what you see. That could look actually quite cute. I mean, what I could do on one side is perhaps sew some buttons on top of the poppers anyway, if I wanted to have a bit more of a show. But I'm quite pleased with it, and it looks quite cute. So I've just made marks with some pen all the way down through here, every 3.5 inches. And I've decided I'm going to use white plastic press studs on both sides. I had a look and see which colour suited on both sides, and it was definitely the white ones. So I'm going to put those down there, and then obviously the polka dots on the other side looks just amazing with the white plastic things. So I'll just put those on. So this is my lovely finished jacket. If I just put it on, You can see it's the lovely, oh, can't get the arm in the sleeve, lovely cupcakes on one side. It does that with poppers. It's got a lovely binding around the neck, and then the two little cute cupcake with cherries on pockets. So that's one way around. You can see all the binding on all of the seams, and obviously we did that little fake seam down the side there. And then on the other way around, because it's reversible, I did the cupcakes, but on this side there's no pockets, so there's secret inside pockets, and the poppers look the same on the outside and the inside, which is why I went for the white poppers, because I thought it was quite a cool look. So that's all done. I hope you enjoyed my video, and obviously I'll recommend the pattern below as well. I'll put a link to the pattern that I used, because it is actually a very good little pattern for a little quilted jacket. It's really simple and easy to follow. If you liked the video, please click like below. I'd love you to subscribe to my channel as well, because I'm hoping to make lots more things in the future. Coming up next is going to be my bootleg jeans that I'm going to make into barrel leg jeans by inserting sashika embroidery all down the side. There's a little example for you. So come back and watch that one, and also click subscribe. I'll see you guys soon.